Let's see. Oh, sorry. Welcome everyone. My name's Dom, and yeah, this is Genshin Impact running on the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III. I recently did a review on this phone, and I got a lot of comments on one particular element of this phone, which is the gaming stuff. So I went ahead and ran some benchmarks on this phone's gaming performance, because in that video I said that this phone wasn't targeted for gamers. And in Sony's marketing material, I will admit that they do reference this phone being used as a gaming phone. So I went ahead and I took this phone, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and an old Galaxy Note 10, just as an extra little reference there, right? And I took these three phones and I ran this game, got that upside down, and I ran this game Genshin Impact on all three for an hour. And I took some benchmarks, I took some thermals, and I took some other stuff, and the results are quite interesting. So let's get into it. Like I said, this is the Xperia 1 Mark III, and I did the review on this phone. If you haven't seen that one, definitely go check it out. But if you're just here to see the gaming stuff, the core premise of this video is that in my review, I said that this phone was made for hardcore videographers and photographers, mostly photographers, but it does video really well as well. So I got a lot of comments referencing how I didn't really talk about the gaming elements of this phone. And you know, like I said, the Sony marketing material does actually reference the gaming elements on this phone. And this kind of all got brought up because on this phone, which I believe is targeted at photographers, it comes pre-installed with Call of Duty that you can't remove. And this is a $1,300 phone. It's a $1,300 phone that in the States, you can't get an installment plan on. At least at the time I bought this phone, I couldn't get an installment plan on this phone. I had to buy it outright. And so my argument kind of falls in line with that. I can't really recommend this phone to anybody who's not a hardcore photographer, right? Because of the little switch that's on the top that gives you the ability to just quickly snap and shoot. And it's awesome. The Xperia itself, let me say this really quick before we get farther into this video. The Xperia is an awesome, elegant, wonderful phone in every regard. But I had doubts and uncertainties about the gaming attributes of this phone. I don't feel that this phone is a gaming phone. Now, I wanted to make sure that, you know, like, okay, if it's a gaming phone, I'm going to treat it as a gaming phone. So I wanted to kind of run it through the works. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to test out every single Android game. So I didn't want to run Call of Duty on this because it's pre-installed. And there's a good chance that Activision or whomever optimized for this phone. So I wanted to pick, you know, random popular games. So I went with Genshin Impact, and I'm an anime fan and all this other stuff like that. That's not important for the premise of this video. This video and the channel itself is in no way sponsored by the creators or the company of Genshin Impact in any way, shape, or form. This is just a game that I picked and that I am now unfortunately kind of addicted to because I'm actually having a lot of fun with it. But what I found was that if this phone is a gamer phone, then this is a bad gamer phone. And that's not to say that you can't game on the phone. Effectively, the heat that comes out from this phone is absurd. The heat is it's not so hot that you literally can't hold the phone, but it is extremely uncomfortable. So to make sure that, you know, this wasn't a issue with the game itself, I went ahead and I bought this. This is my Galaxy Note 10, right? So this is a Galaxy Note 10 5G plus 5G, whatever you want to call it. This phone I've had for a while now. So this one has an aged battery, and nothing about the marketing material suggests in the way that Sony did with this phone that this phone is for gaming, right? Like, I'm sure you could find references to this phone being about gaming, and certainly with the iPhone, Apple talks about the gaming performance, right? But it's never marketed as a gaming phone. It's never said like, this is a gaming phone, or, you know, this is also for gamers. It's just another thing that the phone can do, and I feel that the Xperia falls into that category as well. However, like I said with Sony's marketing material, they specifically include gaming as kind of a feature, you know, relative to the camera system in this phone. So I went ahead and I played Genshin Impact for an hour on each of these phones, and I recorded the temperature and the battery life for each phone on 10 minutes and 10-minute increments as I played the game. So to start the test off, I effectively wanted to run the game settings on the highest that I could possibly run them. I basically maxed out every single setting, resolution and blur and anti-aliasing, everything like that, right? So all the phones were using the same settings for running the game. And then the other things that I wanted to make sure is that I kept the screen brightness at half and the speaker volume at half. I tried to simulate a gaming experience, a hardcore gaming experience on a phone, and I figured an hour is a good enough time. Getting into the Galaxy Note, I wanted want to start off with this one first, because I was very surprised at how well the Galaxy Note did with this test. Effectively, it ran wonderful. I think it hitched like once. The temperatures were basically, they were better than the iPhone. And this is an older phone, right? This is an older phone with a used battery. So battery consumption was a little bit on the weak side, especially when you compare it to the iPhone, which just annihilated this test. Now, all these games are running in 60 frames per second mode, and all three phones could run the game well in 60 frames per second, right? So, but the iPhone just killed it. Now, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which I also did a review on, so you can check that one out after the video if you want, the frame rate was just 60 frames per second all the way through. The temperatures, yeah, there were some moments where it got warm, and there was one instance where, you know, it kind of peaked up there a little bit, but the overall performance, again, on a non-gamer targeted phone, right? This is not an Asus ROG. This is not any of those other like hardcore gaming phones with literal fans built into them. None of these phones, to me, fit that criteria, but none of these phones are marketed in the way that the Xperia is. So the Xperia's game performance, it played the game fine, right? And I ran this in 2 modes. So this phone has something called HS mode, which you could enable through the little Game Booster app. And effectively what it does is the power from the charger goes right into the phone, and it ignores the battery. It bypasses the battery, so the battery won't get warm while you are gaming, right? It's like whatever the Game Booster setting is. So the battery itself is not charging. So when you're playing a game, you're just taking power right from the wall, which does in fact keep the phone cooler. So I actually ran 2 tests with this because HS mode is not something that's offered in any of these 2 phones, at least not advertised as one of the core features. So like I said, I ran the test twice. I ran it in HS mode, I ran it on battery, and the battery was just, I mean, that was by far the worst one. The battery drain, while it started off kind of really crazy with like extremely fast battery drain, it did end up beating out the Galaxy Note. But again, this phone's significantly older than this phone, so that could just be a battery life thing. But when it comes to the heat, this is the biggest issue that I have, and this is why I can't personally call this phone a good gaming phone in the sense that it's targeted for gamers. Like if you are considering buying this phone for gaming, I believe you can put that money elsewhere and get at least an equal experience with less heat. Now, I've heard that they're trying to patch out stuff and Sony's attempting to deal with the heating issues, but from my experience with this phone, with this individual phone, so your mileage may vary, without more phones, I won't be able to, get a better data set. But with this phone, the heat was just unbearable. I mean, there were times where there's this little section, and all 3 phones kind of have this actually. It's kind of interesting. The section here by the camera module, I don't know if that's good. Yeah, okay. I'm getting it picked up there. So on all the phones, this little section here got extremely warm on all 3 phones, which I found to be very interesting. I looked at some teardown videos and with a buddy of mine, and we found basically like, yeah, the battery and all that stuff is down here. So I don't exactly know what's going on with, these 3 phones, like what's up in those sections there, but that's the area that gets very hot. And when it gets hot on the Xperia, it gets hot. I mean, I think this thing got up to almost 120 degrees on this section. Speaking of the temperature, so to measure the temperature for these phones, I effectively used one of those, it's like, it's really supposed to be used for people, but you can use it on surfaces too. Unfortunately, I couldn't justify the price of like a real thermal camera. Yeah, I wasn't able to effectively, like truly precisely measure these the way that I wanted to, but I did the best I could, and I measured all 4 corners of the phone and then the middle. And then for the Galaxy Note, I had to put some Scotch tape in those same sections because the IR reading capabilities may have been, I may have gotten bad reads because of the reflective surface. And for the iPhone, I did have the case off for it. So all these phones were bare naked, and yeah, I mean, I ran through the same test. I'm showing the results. I can't say that there's any arguments. To be honest with you, I think the reason that Sony included this phone with like gamer elements and selling it with that is some kind of deal with Activision. I did some Googling, I did some searching around, and I wasn't able to find any definitive proof of that, but I'm willing to bet, and this is just speculation, I'm willing to bet that this phone really wasn't made for gamers, but somewhere in Sony's R&D and marketing department, they determined there's probably not enough photographers who are going to pick this phone, so we need to entice another market. And so they made a deal with Activision. Activision gave them some money to get exclusive, pre-installed, whatever's going on. That's my guess. as to why this phone is like this. And I know that previous Xperias have had gamer-like elements. There was the Xperia Play a long time ago that was kind of like a PSP. So that's not to say the Xperia line doesn't have a history with gaming. All I'm simply saying is that this phone is not a gamer phone. And just for anyone who's still watching, I am going to be doing a little bit more of a comparison between the iPhone, specifically the camera, and the Xperia's camera here. So, you know, definitely get yourself subscribed. If you're not, definitely check that one out, because I'm really excited to see what these two behemoth cameras can do when they're brought up head to head. But getting back into it all, I know I'm probably going to receive a lot of negative feedback for my results on this one. Like I said, I tried to be as fair as possible. I tried to be as realistic as possible. There could be certainly better games I could have ran. You know, there's a variety of variables. This was not, you know, the easiest test to run in a controlled environment to find like absolute definitive proof, but I did the best I could with what I had. And like I said, this is no hit against the Xperia. The Xperia is a wonderful, excellent phone in so many ways. And certainly there are reasons why the battery drain or the heat, you know, could have been higher, you know, because of maybe the, you know, the 4K screen or whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, if those elements are hindering the phone's gaming performance and heat and everything like that, that's not good. Like, that doesn't make it better. Like, just because you have a 4K screen doesn't automatically give you a free ticket into, you know, into Gamer Central here. So, you know, I mean, when it's all said and done, it's no bash against the Xperia, but I wanted to find out myself. I wanted to make this video, and I wanted to find out myself what the deal was with this. Again, you can game on this phone. I never said you can't game on this phone. You can 100% game on this phone. I think you're going to get a good experience. Just be careful, because yeah, the heat is like, it's a lot. And no matter what mode you run this in, it's going to get warm, and maybe they'll be able to patch it out in the future. But for right now, that's at least what this phone was giving me. And you know what, to be honest with you, I would much rather game on a slightly different aspect ratio, but that's my personal opinion, right? You know, the wide is nice for consuming, you know, like movies and what have you, and for taking pictures and all that other stuff. So, you know, when it's all said and done, I really appreciate you guys watching this video. Definitely throw a like on it if you liked it. Let me know your thoughts down below. If there's more tests you want me to perform, if you like this kind of video, if there's anything else I could have done to, you know, get more accurate results, all of that kind of stuff like that. I say this all the time. Please consider sharing the video. It helps the channel out a lot. And as always, talk to you soon.